Skull.
Skull. You're
Skull.
so far off pace, I should say.
Skull.
The Minnesota Vikings are back in the win column, so welcome to a, I don't know if excited, we're excited, but I don't know if that's the number one emotion I'd throw out there, but probably relieved group, and by group I mean duo, of myself and Mr. Brev Bain. Brev, how are you feeling about last night's W?
I'm just happy it's a W. I think you put it perfectly that there's emotions to it, to where I sound like a little B word saying I wanted to win by more and win more convincingly, but there's context. Like 21-13 doesn't look like that much of a beating, but they needed a win. They won. I can't ask too much.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the details. Obviously, some implications coming out today about special teams, both with long snapper Andrew DePaula, and then uh, this one kills me, but possibly a aggravation of a 5-year-old injury for Will Reichard, where he had torn was it his calf or his quad muscle?
I don't
Um,
remember.
I'm trying to remember off the bone, and it seems like that got re-aggravated last night. But hopefully he'll be okay. I think the Vikings are going to be looking at kickers. Yay! Finally get a good one, and his first two misses come because he's injured, and then now he might be gone for a while. I'm sure we'll talk about that later this week. There's really no news until there is news as far as short-term IR, long-term IR, whatever that looks like for both him and Andrew. But how would you, we've done this before, we'll do it again. One word to describe last night's game.
One word to describe it. I would say fine. Fine.
You can elaborate. That's your word, but
Fine.
you can provide
Oh,
more
okay, okay.
clarity.
I mean, you look at what the defense did. The defense seemed to be back. I think we all kind of thought that Joe Flacco is the kind of quarterback that a Brian Flores defense is going to struggle a bit against. And honestly, just like a quarterback the Vikings franchise and organization struggles against for all of time. The old, I don't want to say, be disrespectful and say washed, but kind of washed Joe Flacco. But they technically allowed 6 offensive points, but 3 of those were because the Colts decided to kick a field goal. I think it was 1st and 10 after a penalty. So, because they onsided trying to get the ball back. By the way, kudos to I guess it was Matt Gay that kicked the onside kick. Perfect onside kick. That onside
Really
kick,
good.
wow. But yeah, it was fine. The offense again is still pretty aggravating to watch at times. Sam Darnold still plenty immune to bozo moments. But you got what you wanted to see out of the defense. I know it's the Colts; they're not the best team in the world, but they're not a bad team. So like last night was fine.
Yeah, I have a few different words.
Hmm.
I'm going to be positive and say promising.
Hmm.
I'm going to say promising because for as many of the defense or offensive flaws as there were with Darnold having some bozo plays, I think the offense looked good outside of those two throws that probably should have been thrown elsewhere. I think
Hmm.
the involvement of Cam Akers was really promising. I have it here. I think he averaged around 7 yards a carry.
Closer to 8.
It's closer to 8, yeah, 7.7 yards a carry. Um, and do I think that's sustainable? Maybe not, but like that's not a bad defensive front. It's overall not a great rushing defense, but that defensive front's pretty good. Um, Darnold, uh, the Twitter discourse now is Darnold good or is he bad based on his amount of incompletions? And I made the point to somebody last night. It's fair to say not all incompletions are equal because interceptions count as incompletions. It's an attempted throw that did not get completed to its intended target.
Mhm.
And if the Colts were able to capitalize on those turnovers, we're looking at a completely different game. It's also the fact that both of those throws could have likely gone to people, to receivers who would have scored touchdowns or at least in the red zone play gotten us very close to the goal line and picked up a first down. So it's the implications. But to that point, he doesn't have a lot of incompletions because he's actually been throwing the ball pretty well and delivering it on the money. I think it's just at this point I'm done. Like I'll still point out when Darnold does something stupid. I'll still give him praise when he makes a great throw, but internally I'm just gonna embrace the bozo ball. I'm done trying to pretend he's something he's not. I'm also not going to pretend he's some bad quarterback who deserves the reputation he has. I'm just going to embrace the fact we're going to have, and this is going to throw some people off when I use this word, but some Favre moments a little bit. Like he has an arm where he can throw it 55 yards in the air downfield. We've seen that already. He also is just going to make some dumb reads. I think the offense as a whole, in its new kind of quick fire, and the offense did move in a quicker pace than it had previously. Not always, but it worked. I think we had one delay of game that ended up not being a delay of game because we called a timeout. That wasn't great, but it's better than what we've had. The pre snap penalties were a lot less than they had been, even with a new starting left tackle. The adjustments worked. You look at, to your point, the defense. Dallas Turner is he's the answer to your problems, I think, at least in the interim. That's not a bad offensive line. It's actually one of the top offensive lines in the league, and we were able to go in there and the joint pass rush looked good. Overall, was it a perfect game? No, but am I feeling optimistic about the offense and defense? Yes. Am I worried about the implications of what's going to happen on special teams? Significantly, depending on the info we find out. But out of the next 3 games, including the Colts game, and maybe even if you want to say 4 games, include the Bears game, I think the Colts were the best team we face in November.
Mm,
Jacksonville, maybe, but I mean, I think the Colts have they hadn't. That was their largest loss of the season.
we
It was
play
8 points.
Chicago.
I'm not ready. I'm going to be honest. As long as Eberflus is in Chicago, they have a lot of talent. I'm not denying that. I think they're the most talented team we play, but they are probably one of the worst coach teams in the league.
I would agree. I just think the Colts and Bears are pretty even. Of course, that yesterday's game by the Bears doesn't help my case, but
I can make that argument. So I don't think there's much of a difference between those two teams. However, I think the coaching on the Bears is significantly worse and will ultimately be their downfall this season.
yes, yes,
But I think you're not going to play a team that is noticeably more difficult than the Colts in the next month.
yeah. I agree with that.
And for that reason, I think what we saw was promising. Obviously, you're going to face different types of quarterbacks, especially Caleb Williams being the real wild card here against this defense because he has insane physical tools. But I feel optimistic that we can come out of this month with 9, 10 wins. I think we have 3 more games. So,
Hmm.
no, yes, 3 more
No,
games. So we could come out with 9 wins and pretty much all but certainly have a playoff spot almost secured.
you would sure hope so, and it's. I mean, we even before the season, we were kind of like this 3 game stretch is something the Vikings should get through with 3 wins. So especially now that the bar has been raised and you're 6-2 and your playoff probability is quite high, you have to win all 3. So I'd agree.
One thing I want to point out, I have it. I retweeted it. Let me bring it up. It was kind of to my point about just embracing the Darnold chaos. From Opta Stats last night, this is crazy. Sam Darnold is the only NFL quarterback in the Super Bowl era to complete 80% of his throws, have 3 or more touchdown passes, while also having 3 or more turnovers and taking 3 or more sacks. That is, and I quote tweeted and said, "This is if Nick Mullins was good," because
Mhm.
basically that's what that stat line reads like. But like, do you think? And this is now that we have more overhead of a view, being 9 weeks into the season, can Sam Darnold win the Vikings a or multiple playoff games?
Um, Sam Darnold himself, I'm not sure about that. Kevin O'Connell in Sam Darnold's ear, yeah. But I assume you're with the context that Kevin O'Connell is coaching Sam Darnold. Yeah,
Can Sam Darnold play well enough to not cost us a game and to help us score enough points to win a game? Can he be a determining factor? Not the determining factor,
Mhm.
but can he lead at, because we talked about, regardless of Kirk's stats or not, could he lead the team to multiple playoff wins? Like, can Sam Darnold be under center for playoff victories?
Yeah, 100%. Of course, it depends who you're playing, which right now you're kind of, let's just say the season ended today. I think Minnesota would be the fifth seed as it stands. So, first wild card team, obviously, assume Detroit wins the division. That gets you, man, like we're hurtling towards a playoff game against Kirk Cousins, and that scares me a lot. Um, but this team could definitely beat Atlanta. I think Atlanta's good, but who right now is well, no, we'd probably be hurt if the NFC West keeps doing what they're doing. We might be playing the winner of that division first round. Yeah, because the Cardinals are technically winning it right now, 5-4. Long story short, it depends who they play. If you play the winner of the NFC West, yeah, you then have to play the winner. Probably at this point, it's looking like Washington, which is crazy to think. Which, by the way, if Minnesota plays Washington in the playoffs, I have zero excuse not to go.
It will be pricey, but I think it'll be worth it. Yeah, I'm planning to go to the first round of the playoffs. I even asked for a Ticketmaster gift card for Christmas so that I can more easily convince my wife that I can go. Um, Hopefully, I don't have to go back to LA. If it's not in Minnesota, which would obviously require us to win the division, which is still possible, but looking less likely by the week, I would prefer it to be in Arizona because I know that half that stadium would be Vikings fans. And I could possibly even maybe attempt to get free tickets. I guess we'll see. Um, One of the benefits of my company having one of the casitas there that I've not been to yet. But that would be fun. Uh, with where we're at now, yeah, I think as long as Darnold throws more touchdowns than interceptions, I think we're fine. I think that ratio has to be higher. And obviously, like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, yes, that makes sense. But I just think he has to, and when you look at total turnovers because of the fumble, yes, it was 3-3. I funny stat, him and Kirk Cousins are tied with the exact same amount of touchdowns and interceptions right now. But people are like, Kirk has like 400 more yards. Well, he's played an extra game, and also he's like 4 times the price. So,
Yes.
but I think he can do just enough to keep us in the game. I am really happy about the fact that even though it was on some kind of weird max protect plays, deep shot, end game scenarios, we managed to get a few sacks at the end of the game, get Grenard back in his swing because when he's hot, this team is really scary on defense. Do you see? I mean, overhead view, this could be something where we finish recording this, go to upload it, and this is already obsolete. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but part of me hopes it does. Obviously, tomorrow is the biggest potential day for America. A lot of big decisions. People are going to be sitting there really thinking through the implications of their choices on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. And of course, with that, I'm talking about the NFL trade deadline.
Mhm.
Do you see the Vikings making a move? If so, what position? If you had to guess.
At this point, I really don't think they do. I guess it's safer to say that they won't, but they've made they're not groundbreaking. They've made two trades, and it's really disappointing that because I mean I was obviously never in on the Vikings are going to be in the running for Dexter Lawrence. Which if that happens, cool. awesome. Uh, it's kind of disappointing that one is for a running back that was on the team last year. Granted, he played great last night and he needs more run and already deserves more run than Ty Chandler. And two is just replacing the third best player on your team, maybe second best player on your team. So I don't know. They'd have to pull draft capital out from the future. I think that's kind of clouding my answer. If I had to like gun to my head, are the Vikings making a trade before the deadline tomorrow? No, I don't think so.
So Alec Lewis put out 6 names, and I'm gonna butcher at least one of these. J.C. Horn, Osa Idighizua from the Cowboys. Am I
Mhm.
pronouncing that correctly? Do you have any idea
No,
if I'm
I
anywhere
don't know.
close?
I don't know how to
Okay.
pronounce.
Uh, Calais Campbell,
Yep.
Dalvin Tomlinson, Dylan Parham, and then Kendall Fuller. Um, he also called Cam Robinson as a trade target the day before it happened. So Alec Lewis, out of all the Vikings kind of beat reporters, seems to be one of them who is best connected. It seems obviously two big names on the defensive line side. We've seen Jeffrey Simmons and Dexter Lawrence, not on that list. But how would you feel about any of those guys?
I mean, I think I wrote an article like 3 weeks ago now saying, or not wrote, I featured an article predicting or just picking a player like a realistic target for the Vikings, and it was Calais Campbell. So I'd be all for Calais Campbell. He'd be super. I would think he'd be super cheap. He's kind of one of those ageless wonder guys. Yeah, ageless wonder guys that doesn't really get talked about enough. So I'd be all for a Calais Campbell trade for sure. I
Yeah, I
don't know
like
how
those.
much just because he him or I guess Dalvin Tomlinson, that's the most like bang for your buck to where that's going to help your team the most. I don't know if I mean trading for J.C. Horn would be cool. I don't know if you're going to do that. Trading for Kendall Fuller, like I like Kendall Fuller. That's not going to make a huge deal. The other guys that he named, not really moved.
JC Horn, I like the prospect because he's what, like 26, 27,
He's young.
younger? Yeah. I like the prospect of him long term, especially with two of our starting corners being old.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to Gilmore and Shaq, but um, I I'll say if the goal is can you acquire somebody now and basically guarantee that they'll be around and that you can pay them and extend them, and you're thinking again to, and this is the line we've talked about since March, we really thought we'd be skewing more towards one way than we are now, is like planning for the future, then I think JC Horn makes sense. But addressing an immediate need to compete now, does he help? Yes. Is corner a burning issue? Well, the Vikings are giving up a lot of yards, but I think that's more out of just how the scheme is designed rather than any of our corners getting just absolutely burnt.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, from the jump, like corners, there's a Brian Flores defense. You really don't need. Like, I don't think you're gonna benefit from. Not to say that if you had like a top end corner, like it would be good. It would be net good. But like in a Brian Flores defense, it's not. The ceiling is gonna be lower for a really good corner. Um, just because like you don't really need a really good corner of Brian Flores defense. So but that and like Quasiata Mensa has kind of proven that like he doesn't. I don't know if he views corner as a premium position. So that makes me question. Well, how like if you're trading for J.C. Horn, I honestly I don't even want to guess what the trade capital would be in a trade for that. But that makes me think that J.C. Horn would kind of automatically be out, and Kendall Fuller would be the more likely one. And then
Yeah,
Kendall
I mean,
Fuller's like he's good, but what's he gonna? It's not adding much.
I still think JC Horn would be a move where it's just the opportunity lines up to get some, and you have the intent of drafting a corner early
Yeah,
on in the draft, and he is just too good to pass up. I really, and like to your point though, as far as Brian Flores' team not really needing corners, I think last year we would have disagreed with that because the corners we had couldn't even execute what the scheme was. And yeah, I've referenced this a million times when you watch receiver on Netflix. Every game where the Vikings are playing one of the other receivers, you see a Caleb Evans getting burnt for a touchdown consistently. So I think last year for having that conversation, we'd say corner's the number one need. I wouldn't be mad at it. I'd be excited, and I think the implications would be good. I'd have to check out what his contract situation looks like. But I think D tackle again, and we talked about this the other day. Not to crap on Harrison Phillips. It's nothing against him. It's just additional bodies. And if we're going to talk about creating pressure, I think somebody like a Dexter Lawrence obviously would be ideal, who can create pressure on the quarterback as a defensive tackle would be good as well. I don't necessarily think we need an edge. Maybe. I don't know. An argument can be made.
Yeah, yeah. An argument can be made, I guess, but I think they're good. What?
Maybe we
Okay.
trade for a kicker.
Yeah. I just like Googled JC Horn trade just to see like some proposals, and a Vikings thing actually came up via heavy.com. They suggest they could send either a pair of fifth round, their pair this year of fifth round picks, or a future third rounder. Would you be okay with giving one of those up for JC Horn?
Pair of fifth round picks. So both, we have 2 fifths this coming draft.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we can't trade our compensatory picks in the
That would
deadline.
leave us just with a third round pick this year.
In their first, yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot we have a first.
I mean,
Oh
I
wait, we
think
don't have a
this
third. We only have a first and 2 fifths.
we
I
have
think.
we're gonna get a compensatory pick one way or another.
Yeah, but
So
since those can't be traded though,
yeah,
that's why I'm negating them. Um, I
I
would
I would.
I would trade a 2026 third first would be my goal. Um, because and I know that leaves you without a third and probably a fourth. But then again, um, you're probably going to get another third or fourth back for Cam Robinson in 2026. So I
Mhm.
would look at that return. I wouldn't give up 2 picks this year. Uh, Maybe. I mean, I if that's what it takes, I would get that done because again, for that price, a player of his caliber, how long does he last? Is he still? He's not on his rookie contract, is he?
That's a good question. He's one of those players that's on the
On the
weird.
cusp. Yeah.
I'll look that up if you stall.
Well, I mean, we don't need to stall. We're
Yeah,
doing research. You know, people got
true.
mad at us for telling jokes, so now we do actual research. They get to deal with the awkward pause that comes along with that.
So he next year's his fifth year option year, which the Panthers picked up.
Okay,
So
so
he
we
would
would
be
have him this year and guaranteed next year, which gives us about a year and a half to be able to negotiate. I'm sure we would not wait for him to reach free agency. You could, and you could franchise tag him if you really want to be snotty about it, but I don't think that would be the intent. I say go for it. I would prefer to send the 2026 third and deal with 2026 when you get there, knowing you'll probably get some comp picks back. And then I would move to the double fifth if needed, if that's what the other team wanted, or the other team being the Panthers.
Me personally, I would trade the 2 fifth round picks. And I know like you wouldn't really have any picks this year, but I'd rather eat it this year than dig more into the future.
And with the knowledge that we are going into this year with a solid amount of cap space, and we will probably work some additional magic. Yeah, I mean, I'm good with either one. I think we both have fair reasons for our preference.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just keep the entire time we've been recording. If I'm looking off to the right, it's because I'm refreshing Twitter because I have this inevitable feeling that as soon as we get done recording, we are going to get some form of news. But yeah, tomorrow should be fun. I'm sure everyone will be glued to Twitter, constantly refreshing to see who will be elected as a trade candidate.
Yes.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Uh, Couple other thoughts from last night that I thought were interesting was some of the typical discourse around Kevin O'Connell came up and play calls and things like that. I don't know about you. I'm kind of done with that conversation after seeing some of the L22, and we've talked about this a bit, of just how wide open people are being schemed.
Mm-hmm.
Like no head coach is going to call the perfect play on every single snap. And seeing how open specifically Jordan Addison is consistently, and I'm glad he got a touchdown and a couple catches last night so that we can at least put to rest the panic button there for a bit. But Kevin O'Connell's play calls, I should say, is getting guys open.
Mhm.
This is a thing for weeks now, 3 or 4 weeks we've been discussing this. It's working, and it's working, dare I say, better than it has in the past.
No, I agree. I guess the only argument to that could be like sometimes it takes too long, and you're just expecting a little bit too long out of your line to stay on blocks. But like if guys are getting open, like O'Connell's doing his job. My gripe with O'Connell has always been those short yardage situations. Like please don't outsmart yourself. I remember there was a 3rd and 1 last night. I don't remember. I think it was in the first quarter. Um, where I was just like, just run the ball, just up the gut, run the ball. Please don't outsmart yourself because I always get, and Kevin O'Connell, of course, isn't the only person guilty of that. That's kind of just like the landscape of football now is to where like these head coaches kind of think overthink it a little bit, and you just got to get back to the lunch pail stuff sometimes. So I mean, yeah, you can't really argue. Like you brought up all 22, the film, the tape. It's people are getting open. Jordan Addison has been getting open, um, pretty much every game he's played, and I guess him and Darnold just didn't build that rapport. I guess rightfully so, as
Mm,
Darnold wanted to get
I don't
on.
know. All of training camp was Sam
Yeah,
Darnold threw an interception. Sam Darnold threw a 60-yard bomb to Jordan Addison.
that's fair. Yeah, I don't have another good reason as to why Addison wouldn't be getting the ball. Then I know you
I
want to
think
throw the
it's his
touchdown
vision.
all the time.
I
Yeah.
I think it's Darnold's ability to read the field. Like, and I'm not saying that in a way to bash him. He's not a perfect quarterback, but I think it's okay to say we spent years getting mad at Kirk Cousins for exclusively throwing it to the most open receiver, even if it didn't make sense. And
Mm-hmm.
now the opposite issue is Darnold can't find the open receiver consistently. But the bright side is he's made some pretty good, smart throws, or I wouldn't say smart, some risky throws to guys who were not necessarily the most open, but he puts the ball where it needs to be and layers it in there. Or he occasionally throws an absolute idiotic interception. But it's like we have to take the bozo plays with somebody who is okay with letting it rip occasionally.
Yeah.
Because Kirk would throw it
And
to wide open guys in the flat, and then we'd be mad we picked up 2 yards, rightfully so. So, like, is the ideal situation that JJ McCarthy is the perfect middle ground who spots the wide open guy, whether they're 5 yards down the field or 25 yards down the field? Hopefully, this is the first quarterback that Kevin O'Connell has truly fully gotten to pick and embrace. It's just not the time. Like, it's just Sam Darnold. We have to live with it and enjoy the ride while we can.
and maybe a little something came up about Darnold needing to settle down a little bit and kind of take the check down if it's there because last night was his lowest average depth of target of the season, 7.7. For reference, against the Jets, he had an average depth of target. And for people that don't know what that means, it's just like the average. Wow, it's such a
How
simple
far
stat.
down the field
Yeah, to the
you're
receivers
throwing
he's
on
throwing
average?
on average. So, yeah, last night 7.7 for context against the Jets was 14.1. So he halved it from his highest game of the year.
And I believe he hasn't broken 300 yet, or has he?
He has not. Last night was the
So,
closest he came to it.
so yeah, to that point, 290, his high. I mean, and again, like, pause. I don't give a shit about yardage if you're scoring touchdowns. To the
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins argument, Kirk Cousins would throw 2 to 3 touchdowns and have 400 yards, but in a loss, it didn't mean anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like we have again, hopefully JJ McCarthy is the middle ground, but that's not now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you
Yeah.
have to be okay with that. So even though his average depth to target is cut in half, his yardage was the highest it's been all season.
Mm-hmm. And to your
And I
point
think
about,
that's the new offense.
I hope so. And to your point about the touchdowns, that again, obviously that's all that matters. He threw 4 touchdowns against the Texans week 3. That's his most of the season. That game was also his second least amount of yards on the year with 181, and that's only 2 more yards than his actual uh, least game with the least amount of yards, which is 179, which was against the Jets, where he had that 14 point yawn, 2 point, what the 14.1 average depth of target yards. I don't know why I'm struggling so much with ADOT right now.
I'm looking real
Also,
quick.
also his lowest completion percentage, holy, by a lot.
Yeah. So, and the funniest thing is like we talk about the yardage, and again, Kirk I think has 400 or 500 more yards than Darnold, but he's played an extra game, and Darnold has the exact same amount of touchdowns and interceptions with just a slightly lower completion percentage. So we can all just chill on like in a vacuum when Darnold makes a dumb throw, I'm going to tweet, what the hell was that? What were you thinking? But I'm not going to like drag the guy. Like as people were posting last night, some larger Twitter accounts I won't throw out, like the Sam Darnold experiment is over. It's time for Nick Mullins. And I'm like, you are not, it was never an experiment. He's your starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had the record we did at this point with a healthy McCarthy, guess what? Darnold's still your starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Period. We are JJ McCarthy stands through and through. We cannot wait to see him play next year. But you don't pull your starting quarterback at 5-2, 6-2. Like it's not an experiment. He's your starter until proven otherwise. And guess what? What's your option this year? Nick Mullins? Ripien, like you don't have an option. So I think that is putting putting more weight on something than is really there. He is your bridge quarterback.
Yeah, I do remember that first when he threw that pick on the first drive last night. Like I was genuinely confused what the throw was at all. Like sometimes interceptions, you get it. And I'm not saying any quarterback is perfect, but like right then and there, I was like, I just don't get it. It's frustrating because he's like a representation of the team where like the ceiling has been shown and it's so high, and then there's that low moment like that where you're just like, how do you do that? First pick was really bad. Second pick was like,
But again,
bad
not to
turnover.
compare us to like the prime Packers, but like how do you think they felt with Favre?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I think Darnold is closer to Favre than he is to somebody like Kirk Cousins, and I think we just need to be okay with the fact that that's how he's going to play the game.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
not
agree.
comparing him. I'm not saying he's at the same skill level for the love of God, but his skill set and his way he plays
Waste.
is gonna be. Sometimes he just chucks it up and rips a ball in there that he shouldn't.
As the kids are saying nowadays, his archetype is Brett Favre gunslinger, not Kirk Cousins field general.
Wow, you gave Kirk the honor of field general instead of game manager. Look at us advancing
Field
as a fan base.
It's so funny because field general really is just like a really nice way to say game manager. It's so funny.
Correct. Yeah, but the verbiage, I'll give you credit where it's due. But yeah, I don't. Ian Rappaport traded. Oh, it was or tweeted. Okay, it was just about Darisaw having his surgery. It's just he's having his surgery today.
Christian
Uh,
Dixon traded.
Christian Darisaw underwent successful surgery at the Twin Cities Orthopedic Center. Procedure was led by Vikings head team physician Dr. Chris Larson. So surgery has been surgeried. Um, and Adam Schefter has also posted about it. The Vikings also just posted about it as well. So I wanted to make sure I got to that. He has had his operation. Hopefully, he will be back ready to go. I'm trying to confirm. Was it ACL and MCL?
Uh,
ACL and MCL.
mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to. I know we saw different things, but I wanted to be 100% sure on what the surgery was identified as because we've seen weirder things happen with knee surgeries in the past.
Very true. Very true.
Well, with that, the Vikings head to Florida this week. We'll talk more about that later in the week. But give me a 1 to 10 scale. How worried should we be about Jacksonville?
3.5.
I was gonna say 3, not 0. Definitely. Well, I
No.
also said 1 to 10, so not a 1. But we should take care of business. I will say the only thing, because sometimes this happens in these November games in Florida, especially in Jacksonville, where there's even less shade than you get in Miami, even on the opposing sideline, is sometimes you see teams really get exhausted from the humidity. I know that sounds like such like a real football players wouldn't let the weather affect him. But like genuinely speaking, just stay freaking hydrated. Don't let anything stupid like cramps. We've seen this team get injured enough. Just be smart, and I think we should take care of business as long as we're ready to play in a little bit of a different environment than we played in so far.
I was at a 3 as well. The point 0.5 is coming from if he doesn't get, which I would, I guess I would think that he would have been let go by now if he had been, but I kind of thinking Doug is coaching for his job.
Yeah,
That's the concern.
a little more urgency there, a little
Yeah,
more fire under his ass.
lot of
Yeah.
urgency.
Well, yeah, I'm weirdly anxious about the health of our kicker, and I've never really. We haven't had a lot of kicking injuries, and even if we would have, it wouldn't have made much of a difference in bringing in somebody else in the past. Maybe my twin will be back, John Parker Romo. Maybe Ryan Longwell's not doing anything. Maybe Dan Bailey. Maybe Blair Walsh wants to stop being a realtor in California. Who knows? Um,
Will Reichard
Ideally,
missing that first field goal was like genuinely the most heartbreaking thing since the Eagles NFC Championship.
yeah, I did have a funny tweet, and somebody said it was diabolical. I had it in my pocket when in reality I just made it up after the second kick. Was Will Wide Reichard, because I had to cope.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's the number one thing that probably sucks for you being off Twitter is as the games are going, you don't have like a unfiltered emotional outlet just to throw your thoughts and then immediately change your tone a play later.
So I left a little bit before the season opener, and those first couple weeks, I'm not gonna lie, they were tough. Like, oh man, I've got a banger in my head. I need to start giving them to you, but
Please.
I can't remember what any of them were. But like as
Um,
the season's gone on, like I don't care about reacting on Twitter anymore. Honestly,
yeah. Please send me tweets. I'll tweet them as if they are my own, and then in the replies, just buried down, I'll come up with a Brev related hashtag.
good.
Hashtag baked by Brev, and people will be like, "What does that mean?" And be like, "You freaking figure it out."
I had a I had a good one last night that I remembered, and now I can't remember it, and now it's gone with the wind. Just like Will Reichard's kicks last night.
I think also every kick last night seemed like
Yeah,
somebody
apparently.
left the windows open.
Yeah.
Well, Vikings are 6-2. We've officially hit the win total that many outlets and at different points Vegas even predicted us to be at for the season. So we could lose every remaining game and have no issues. One thing I did want to talk about because it's been rumored for 2 days was seemingly going to happen today, may be delayed to tomorrow unless something falls through. Lions fans seeming to be a little bit annoyed that the Browns may be playing hardball with Zadarius Smith. If the Lions get Zadarius Smith, does that move you in any way? I mean, Ben Johnson is the reason they're successful, but does modern day Zadarius Smith really cause you to have any more concerns about their defense?
Yeah, just because the Lions pass rush is not good. It wasn't particularly great outside of Aiden Hutchinson before he got hurt. So kind of anything, and Zarius Smith is still like an okay edge rusher, so anything better than their abysmal pass rush would help. And also, I feel like some good-looking young chap wrote about Zadarius Smith to the Lions on Purple PTSD like weeks ago. Just
Well,
like,
maybe that person should I don't know, have a Twitter account so they can constantly share their thoughts, completely unasked for.
I'll talk to the boss.
You are the boss.
Is that what you think?
What? Anyways, we'll see you guys later this week, probably on Friday. And we'll head into the weekend prepping for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And to Brev's point, probably in Doug Peterson's most important game since Super Bowl 52.
Oh, it's gonna feel good getting him fired. Actually, oh, I'm